Ladies and gentlemen, the map has spawned, and the map is going to be GSL Daybreak, spawning over here in the bottom left-hand corner as the red Protoss. My goodness, guys, have we got an amazing player for you here. The foreign hope, Swedish homegrown player. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be Quantic NaNiwa. But his opponent over here, definitely no slouch, in the top right of GSL Daybreak. Not quite able to take the GSL crown last time around, becoming runner-up. Basically the second best player in the GSL, and some would argue the best Protoss in the world. Will he be able to pull off? It's going to be MYM MVP Genius. And I am so unbelievably excited to be casting this match. These guys, two of the best Protosses in the world. We can finally see some head-to-head, really tip-top end Protoss strategy in action here. Both of these players, of course, commanding tremendous respect in their respective communities, and NaNiwa currently flying back to Sweden from Korea, actually, to participate in this tournament. Genius, of course, living in Korea as well. So both of these players going to be heading back to their GSL obligations after DreamHack, but taking the time out of their day to participate in this absolutely amazing tournament. My goodness, this is going to be a ridiculous game indeed. We do have the first gas being taken from Genius slightly earlier than NaNiwa, but nothing that couldn't be considered a small bump in the build. Both of these players are effectively doing the exact same thing at this point in time. Wow, what a way to start a morning. 9 o'clock in the morning. Who needs a cup of coffee? We just need some PvP, guys. What are we talking about? Whoa! What an amazing match. We're going to see the first probe scout now coming out from Genius towards the middle of the map. He will be able to check out what NaNiwa is doing first. NaNiwa feeling a little bit more confident, not needing to scout until just a little bit later on in the matchup. He's assuming, I presume, that both players are going for a similar build, but actually NaNiwa has just taken his second gas. So he is going to be getting that gas geyser up a little bit earlier, I believe, than MVP Genius, who has just started his. And it looks like neither player is going to be going for some ultra-early one-gas sneaker pylon in 4-gate style shenanigans. We did see NaNiwa do this once yesterday, of course, in his group stages. I believe it was against Roby. So this kind of thing is technically possible. NaNiwa going to be using this probe to try and harass and mine this mineral patch as much as possible to try and stop these two probes from mining. Pardon me, Genius is going to be doing that to NaNiwa, but actually Genius leaving the probe on minerals just a little bit too long there, and he carries his own minerals, so once a probe is carrying a mineral, you can no longer right-click a mineral patch and have it start mining. So NaNiwa is not going to be harassed in the mineral line anymore by that probe in this game, as NaNiwa now going to be sending a scout in of his own into the base of Genius. Genius not feeling too afraid of NaNiwa at the moment, because he saw that double gas was going down, so he must be feeling relatively, and NaNiwa not even going to be scouting Genius. He's just set the probe on patrol in the third base. It looks like he wants to be putting on the aggression a little bit later on, and that probe is going to be putting down a pylon somewhere behind the mineral line at the third probes. Of course, guys, the most imbalanced units in the game, because they can build pylons, and pylons can build Protoss units. Oh my goodness. NaNiwa, though, losing the probe. Instead of leaving it on patrol, he actually decides to try and get a bit of a scout with it, and that first Zealot and Stalker are indeed going to take it out. So NaNiwa is completely in the dark, and Genius saw the second gas. Genius is going to feel a little bit safer than NaNiwa at the moment, but if NaNiwa assumes that Genius isn't going to be 4-gating or something similar, which is a very reasonable assumption considering this is a 1 force field sized ramp, then he shouldn't have too much to fear as well. Let's take a look at what both players are going. We do have one gate into a second gate and a robotics facility coming out from Genius, and meanwhile on NaNiwa's half of the world we have the Twilight Council, and the Dark Shrine, ladies and gentlemen, has gone down. The roll of cheese has wheeled itself out early today in DreamHack Stockholm. The eyes are open. NaNiwa going to be going for some Dark Templarage, and this could be very good for Genius if he gets an observer out first from that robotics facility. By the time DTs arrive, he will have one observer and be chrono boosting out that second one as soon as he sees them, I have no doubt. Will he be able to get it out in time, though? The Dark Shrine is currently just over halfway complete, and let's see what unit pops out first from the robotics facility. If Genius decides to go for some Okay, excellent. We have the Observer first. We are not going to be going for something like an Immortal first timing push. This is going to be great for Genius because the Observer is going to be able to take down the Dark Templar. I don't know if NaNiwa is going to be able to pull this off. We do basically have a blind DT build. What does NaNiwa see in terms of scouting? Absolutely nothing at the moment. So this is very, very risky for him indeed, as the third gateway now goes down for him as well. Will we see a fourth? We do indeed see a fourth. So 4-gate DTs coming out, and we do actually have Blink being researched as well. So let's watch and see if some DTs get warped in. They do indeed. A single Dark Templar getting warped in at the pylon on the bottom here. In the meantime, MVP Genius with his Observer going to be moving out across the map actually, and he's creating an Immortal right now. So the Observer could be caught on the wrong side of the map by the time this DT goes in to do damage. We have a second DT being warped in at this lower pylon now as well, and by the time the Observer sees the Dark Shrine, it's going to be too late for him to turn back without taking damage. NaNiwa starting to go to work on these probes, and all of a sudden Genius knows that the DTs are here. This Observer is actually staying, and another Observer is being chrono boosted out. His damage should be somewhat limited by this. We'll have to wait and see. Oh no, the force field not quite keeping the DT out. In fact, locking the DT in with the probes. This is disastrous for MVP Genius. More and more probes are going down now, but the Observer pops out, and crucially, there we go. The DT is going to go down, but the second DT is now in the natural. There isn't a single probe left there though, and this DT is not going to be able to do too much damage. The Observer now coming down, trying to chase the DT away, unable to see the DT before he gets the hell out of dodge, and this DT is going to be chilling out at the third base, waiting for another opportunity to strike. NaNiwa currently up 38 to 29 workers, and 12 workers killed for him. So very, very nice DT harass there. I thought Genius would be able to do some sick defending of that DTs with the first Observer, but he immediately sent it cross map, and as a result the Observer was out of position when the DTs got to his base. So this could be a crucial early game victory for NaNiwa, who now has a small supply lead and definitely has a worker lead. Genius though getting a nice scat out on everything NaNiwa is doing at the moment, so he now knows now that DTs are out the door, he doesn't have to worry about too much more. He has got the Observers in place, of course. Now this Dark Shrine is going to be a little bit annoying for the entire game, because even if the game goes through a period where no DTs are harassing, he can just randomly pull one out at any time and just ask Genius, do you have an Observer in your base? Are you still defending? And try and catch out a bunch of probes that way. And a move like that later on in the game could be worth 10 or 20 probes. This could potentially be absolutely huge for NaNiwa later on, and Genius is always going to have to keep strategies like that in the back of his head. So now let's take a look at the unit counting station. We have got 47 to 39 probes in favor of NaNiwa after that DT harass as predicted, but don't forget a lot of gas and a lot of minerals were invested in those DTs. So we'll wait and see whether Genius will be able to catch up. He is now up to 41. 4 Zealots to 2 in favor of Genius, 3 Immortals and 3 Stalkers versus 8 Stalkers. So Genius, as far as the ground army minus the DTs is concerned, is actually doing very well indeed, and we then have 3 sentries apiece. So Genius actually doing okay in terms of army size at the moment. The question is whether NaNiwa will be able to counter it now that Genius has got those out on the field, and we do see that NaNiwa is chrono boosting that extended thermal lance for those Colossi. Is he still on a single robotics facility? He is. Both sides are at the moment. We're not going to see a double robos at all just yet, but we might see them at some point soon. We'll wait and check out if these players will be going that route. But both players getting extended thermal lance down. It looks like Genius is getting ready to move out, possibly with his second Colossus. He's getting his army in position. He's getting a little bit antsy here. I suspect he wants to be moving out to the middle of the map. He'll feel a little bit safer once that second Colossus pops out. We can see it in production now for both players, but we do have the second Robo coming down for Genius. Ladies and gentlemen, double Robo all the way. We're going to be seeing some absolutely insane Colossus production, and of course with this Observer going with the army here, it's going to be brilliant for him because DTs will not be able to do any damage or assist in applying any additional APM. Genius, very nice move here. Going to be putting down the photon cannon at the choke, so the DTs will not be able to walk in here without him knowing about it, and he can move out with his army with an Observer in tow and have the cannon take down the DTs. Brilliant move there from Genius. This is exactly the kind of high-level thinking we need to see from players who know they're susceptible to really, really sneaky harassment, like we all know NaNiwa is capable of. NaNiwa now moving out through the middle of the map. He does have a probe hidden somewhere in this army, so he will be able to make a forward pylon. It looks like an engagement with Genius is imminent here. 124 supply for Nani to 115 of Genius. Genius, what is the army size looking like? NaNiwa actually has a slender advantage at the moment. In all counts, he is still 6 workers ahead, and his army size is slightly bigger as well. We do have the high ground advantage for Genius. Will that be enough, though? He needs to force field the ramp if required, but the Colossus going out in front to stomp on those force fields, so Genius unable to force field early on, and the blink in. NaNiwa being super offensive at the moment, getting that Colossus, and it looks like NaNiwa in a little bit of trouble here, though. Has he overextended himself? A lot of those blink stalkers did actually go down there, and while the Colossus from Genius did go down, I'm not sure that's the kind of engagement NaNiwa wanted. He's now down to 122 supply to the 130 for Genius, so I think Genius definitely getting the better end of that engagement with the additional Immortals in his army composition, and NaNiwa just not really having an easy answer to those Zealots because the Colossi not able to get the shots off that they wanted thanks to where he engaged. And now Genius is going to move out across the map himself. In the meantime, what kind of tech do we see going down for both of these players? I believe a Templar Archives is going down for NaNiwa, so he could be going up to those Archons, of course, in the later game composition. In the meantime, we do also have Ground Weapons Level 1 and Zealot Charge coming out from Genius as he looks poised here to take his 3rd base. His army is in position to defend it while it constructs, and this probe is looking like it is loitering with intent. I suspect that Nexus is going to be popping down some point soon. There we go. There's a pylon, the precursor to the Nexus there, and we are going to see a 3rd base pop out. The army just going to be scouting for a couple of forward pylons down the bottom, finds this one, very, very well done by him, and going to be warping in a Dark Templar. Is the Observer with this army? It is, unfortunately, and the DT is going to get instantly roasted. Never knew what happened to it. It was invisible anyway, guys, don't worry. Genius just playing this game very, very carefully at the moment. The supply is currently neck and neck. If we take a look at the work account, NaNiwa is still ahead though, 59 to 50, but Genius just with the superior army control so far in this game. NaNiwa not really choosing where he engages quite as well as Genius has, and the defender's advantage was enough for him to win that first engagement. The rocks now at the front of NaNiwa's base being taken down. NaNiwa knows it's coming. He can see the health on the rocks getting drilled down, and there we go. The engagement is about to commence. Colossi doing immense damage to those Zealots, though. The Zealot wall from both sides effectively evaporating, and there are more Colossi on the side of Genius at the moment, targeting down those Zealots, and all the Zealots go down for both sides. Now it's a question of micro. Will the Immortals be able to hold out against the Stalkers? It's looking like NaNiwa has a slender advantage at the moment. He doesn't want to lose all of these Colossi. Zealot Charge is going to be taking down one of the Colossi in the back, and it looks like one of the Colossus will go down for Genius. There we go. Will he be able to get a second one as well? NaNiwa is constantly blinking forward, being even more aggressive here. 102 supply to 112. NaNiwa doing a great job of being offensive on the counter. This is an incredibly close match, and actually Genius trying to pick off the Observer, and he does. Really nicely played there. So that means NaNiwa no longer has the option of picking off the Observer and then introducing Dark Templar to his army, forcing Genius to pull back. There was a crucial pick off there of the Observer for Genius, and that could prove to be pivotal in the next engagement if NaNiwa does not remake that Observer. We do not see that Observer being made at the moment, so this could be absolutely huge, but we are gearing up for another PvP engagement. War of the Worlds with these Colossi are going to be coming in shortly. Wow, this is incredible stuff. The 3rd base is definitely down now for MVP Genius, but NaNiwa has also taken it. Genius knows exactly what's going on and even blinks away with the Stalker to try and avoid detection. Doing a good job of that there. NaNiwa scouting for that Blink Stalker, but unable to find it. I suspect he knows that Genius has found the base, though, and that is why he is stationing his army over here at this time. Genius definitely being the more aggressive player at this point in time, taking the Watchtower, choosing where he's going to be able to make that next engagement. But what does the army composition like? We have 3 Archons for NaNiwa that could prove to be absolutely huge, but we have 9 Colossus versus 6 in Genius's favor. The probe count basically equally is now at 59 to 55, and we have 3 Stalkers apiece, so both sides gradually moving towards this endgame army, with NaNiwa getting the Archons earlier than his Korean opponent. Will that prove to be pivotal? We have 2 Colossi here and a bunch of Zealots sort of derping around at home that Genius probably wants to meet up with his army at some point soon. He'll be moving those out across the map. There we go. And it looks like +3 ground weapons and charge are now on the way for Genius. So that could be pivotal, as +2 only just about finishing now for NaNiwa, which means that the upgrade advantage currently lies with Genius. He's going to be able to get ground weapons level 3 2.5 minutes before NaNiwa does, and once +3 hits, he'll have a nice timing window where he might be able to do some incredible damage. We'll have to wait and see. I believe I saw some Archons being morphed as well somewhere on the map. So we need to be watching out for those as well. There we go, the Templar Archives over here. So we might be seeing a bunch of Archons at the moment joining up with Genius's army at some point soon. And once he equalizes that and finishes +3, here we go, only 20 seconds left for +3. I think his timing is now. But NaNiwa is moving out across the map, and +3 will just about finish. By the time he engages Genius, he sees him at the watchtower. He's going to be pulling back. He's not 100% sure +3 is finished yet, and indeed it has, and he's still got a couple of seconds left to go. And +3 has now finished. Once these Archons meet up with the army, he will be able to turn around and engage NaNiwa if he so desires. NaNiwa only just starting +3, but he is going to Warp Prism on the way as well. He needs to be a little bit careful, does Genius, in case NaNiwa decides to drop somewhere in the back of his base. +3, though, is going to take at least another 2 minutes to complete for NaNiwa, though. Will these armies meet in the middle of the map during that time? If they do, Genius could have a slender but prove decisive advantage. We're going to have to wait and see, as some Zealots going to be popping up by the top of the map to try and harass NaNiwa's third base. Good choice. Oh, very nice there, picking off the probe and the forward pylon there as well. NaNiwa unable to get a foothold on the right-hand side of the map at the moment. Genius now at 189 supply to NaNiwa at 180. Both of these sites are soon going to be maxed out, and engagement is going to be imminent. +3, still only 80 seconds out of 220 in for NaNiwa. So Genius with a huge advantage at the moment. If we take a look at this +3, extended thermal lance does 21 damage and twice, so that's 42 damage, where it's only doing 19 for NaNiwa. When there are this many Colossi on the field, that damage stacks up, ladies and gentlemen. So this upgrade advantage could prove to be very decisive for Genius if both armies engage in the open map. However, if NaNiwa sits tight and just plays in a defensive posture and gets a better concave if Genius decides to attack, then his upgrade advantage will be minimized, because NaNiwa will have a fantastic positional advantage, and that might not be enough for Genius to win. A couple of DTs now warped in down the bottom near the third base, but we do have a whole bunch of cannons being morphed in, and I think that's going to be enough to deter these DTs from doing anything. A Warp Prism, though, with 4 DTs in it, so NaNiwa is probably looking to move these DTs into the Warp Prism and bypass the cannons, but he's not going to be able to do that if... oh no, if all of them die, because the army rolls straight over them. One Colossus going down to very low health, but not even going down from Genius there. That's a crucial pickoff. NaNiwa was going to be able to put all 4 of those Dark Templar into the Warp Prism and fly it around the back of this base and possibly drop it here. And you'll notice that there are cannons at the entrance to the natural, but none at the back, so that could have proved to be crucial. But we're about to have the most massive engagement in this game. NaNiwa does also have +3 finished, I believe, so it looks like Genius missed his timing a little bit, but this is just going to be a straight-up open battle between these two players, and it looks like Genius is the one having to retreat first. There are too many Archons for NaNiwa, and he is getting a huge edge in this engagement here. There are a lot of... oh wow, there are a lot of Colossi involved, with the Archons trying their best to target them down, and the Zealots in front of NaNiwa's army are finally starting to melt, but some of the Colossi are now going down for Genius, and he is in a lot of trouble here. 166 to 130 supply, and these Archons are proving to be very, very strong indeed for NaNiwa. I'm afraid Genius missed his timing with the +3 versus the +2, and NaNiwa is now making him try and pay for it. Cancelling the third base does Genius, because frankly he cannot defend it at this time, and NaNiwa gaining a huge foothold in the middle of the map here. Genius does have an observer on top of this army, so he is going to be able to see exactly when it moves out, but he is now fighting a race against time to try and stop NaNiwa from invading. +3 on those Zealots as well with charge, and an awful lot of Archons are going to mean NaNiwa has a huge advantage, but Genius morphing in Archons of his own, and he is going to be able to equalize the Archon count. He has 6 now to the 8 of NaNiwa, and getting a couple more, no doubt, in just a moment. 7 to 8 Colossi also in favor of NaNiwa now, so all of a sudden Genius is the one that needs to be playing positionally, and he needs to be very, very careful on how he chooses to engage his army. It depends on whether NaNiwa is going to be engaged. Oh no! Missed rally by Genius! A Colossus goes down, a second one is getting caught out in the open, a huge mistake there, and a second Colossus gets picked off. That could prove to be decisive as NaNiwa moving up into the natural now, and it looks like the army from Genius is actually caught out of position because he was defending the third as well. NaNiwa is considering moving up in here, but actually decides against it at the moment. He is 185 to 161 supply ahead, and I think he has an edge over MVP Genius in this game number 1. More and more High Templar being warped in now, so NaNiwa really going for an Archon heavy composition here, and Genius just doesn't currently have an answer to it. He is warping a High Templar of himself, but he is 5 Archons to 10 down at the moment. NaNiwa having double the Archon count of Genius, and 1 more Colossus as well, so that could prove to be absolutely huge, as this one Zealot going to be taking out the pylon over here from Genius so that he doesn't warp in any units behind. And now he's going to be attacking the third base. Genius going to be using the Nexus as a little bit of cover. Nice initial engagement with the Zealots, but NaNiwa kiting beautifully with those Colossi there. Those Archons in the front, though, are getting absolutely obliterated from Genius's point of view, and Nani has so many more Archons. Once he finishes kiting, he'll be able to just completely take this army out, and there we go. Colossi on Colossi action. We have War of the Worlds going on in the middle of the map here, but Genius down to basically only Colossi, and there are still Archons left for NaNiwa. He still has 4 left with this army, and he is indeed going to be saving that 4th one. NaNiwa, 155 to 98 supply up. He is just whistling away the defense of MVP Genius at the moment, and Genius basically does not have an answer. What an absolutely amazing game this is turning out to be. NaNiwa showing us the incredible play that perhaps he did not show us yesterday on DreamHack Saturday, and he is really playing the patient macro game, slowly but surely whittling down his opponent, and Genius doing his best to take down the Archons, actually taking down a decent number of them, and 2 Archons in the center doing an awful lot of damage, but it's not going to be enough. GG, and NaNiwa is going to take game number 1 against Genius. Oh my god, what a way to start the game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the DreamHack ISO Open. I am Jarrah. We have just seen NaNiwa versus Genius game number 1. We'll be getting into game number 2 straight after this commercial break. Don't go anywhere.